Hi, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and my project today is a Mother's Day card combining some 3D tulips from Garden Notes dies from Elizabeth Craft Designs along with some glitter and other fun elements. So to start off with, I have a top folding A2 sized white card base cut from 100-pound soft finish cardstock from Elizabeth Craft Designs. I'm going to stick the front of the card base onto some clear double-sided adhesive sheets. And so I've peeled off the backing and then pressed it in place, and now I'm just trimming off the excess that I kind of marked with my fingernail on there. And I'm going to go around and make sure I get it really well trimmed off because I only want that adhesive just on the front. And now I'm going to peel the backing off and start covering it with some cool diamond glitter. And this is where I realized I made a mistake. So I'm rubbing this down with my finger to burnish it and bring out the shine. And then I realized, oh shoot, I was going to put the diamond background die, which is this guy, on top of that for kind of a latticey look. So I've cut that out of 85-pound white soft finish cardstock, and so I decided, well, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. So since 3/4 of that is still exposed adhesive, I just press it onto what's available, and then I cover the rest of it with the glitter. And so then I'm going to burnish that down or rub it down with my finger in between the sort of die cut areas to get it really shiny. And then I just take my Zig 2A glue pen and go on the back of the part that wasn't stuck down and just adhere that to the glitter, and it worked like a charm, no problem at all. Now here's the tulip die from Garden Notes, and this is the leaf and stem die, and there's the finished product there. And I have die cut this out of grass green cardstock from Gina K Designs. All the cardstock I use is Gina K Designs today because it's double-sided, and that's really handy, especially on the petals. Now to add a little of dimension and shading to this, I'm using my Distress Ink and Mowed Lawn with my little blender tool, and I'm just going along the edges and kind of over the stem or here and there. No fancy technique happening whatsoever. You know, I'm not trying to make sure I'm being even or like, you know, in certain areas versus others. I'm just kind of being random because I'm just going for an organic look, and this is a very subtle shading effect in the end, although you do see it, but you really have to be looking for it. But it does make a big difference, so I do encourage you to do it. Now that's the Susan's toolkit that you really have to make these flowers. And this is the leaf tool, and I've flipped the stem over onto the leaf pad, which is kind of like a hard surface. And I'm drawing a vein into the leaf on the back and then a stem line down the middle of the stem. And I've flipped it right side out, and I'm folding back along that scored line in the center of the leaf. And it gets a little tricky, and I'm a little uncoordinated, so I grab my tweezers to hold it for that bottom part just to get that fold going. And I'm going to set that aside and then do the exact same thing on the 3 remaining leaves. So I will actually die cut out 5 tulip stems with all the leaves, and I did wind up with extra leaves in the end. I did not need all the leaves because once you see the bouquet at the end, it's got plenty of leaves as it is. And so I didn't use all of them. And so now I'm just highlighting that scored line that I folded against with my PanPastel. So I'm using that light yellow green to highlight the stem line or vein line. And now I've got it face up, right side up, and I'm just drawing vertical character lines into the leaves. Hopefully you can see that along each of the leaves. And you don't have to be too worried about like how complete those lines are or how straight they are. You know, again, just going for an organic look, and it really does make a difference in the end. That's really cool. And you hopefully will see that in the detail shot at the end. Now each of these color bunches are the 4 petals that make up each tulip. So I've cut them out of 5 different colors of cardstock, and I'm adding shading to them. Now this is lemon drop cardstock, and I'm using mustard seed Distress Ink to add a little bit of shading to those petals, just exactly like I did the leaves. So no fancy technique happening, just going along the edges and sort of adding a little bit of shading here and there. This is red velvet cardstock, and I used Barn Door. Then this is bubblegum pink cardstock, and I'm using Worn Lipstick Distress Ink on that. On the purple, I actually used the PanPastels because this was a really nice color that went really well with the wild lilac cardstock I used, and it darkened it down really nicely because purple tulips tend to be kind of dark. And then the orange was a little tricky. I wanted like a yellow highlight on it. So I wound up using these PanPastels in the kind of yellow-orange color. And that wound up being very, very subtle, but still kind of cool. Now to shape the petals, I'm going to be using my smaller loop tool, and this is the base petal, so it's the biggest petal piece. And I'm just pressing down with the loop tool on the back of the piece, going from the outside wider edge down to the point. And you can see it's kind of shaped it. And then I'm just pinching it at the base, kind of pinching it up. And then just the very, very edges of the petals, I'm rolling those around my leaf tool to roll them in just a little bit. Now, if you're more coordinated than I am, you can use your tweezers to do that rolling method, but I just use the loop tool because that's easier for me, or the leaf tool, I guess. Now, the remaining petals, I've flipped them base side down, so shaded side down, and I'm doing the exact same thing. So pressing with the loop tool from the large end to the small end, and then you're going to flip it around, and you want the shading out, facing away from you, and then press it back as you grip it with the tweezers. So it gets kind of like a U shape with the shading on the outside. I hope that makes sense, because those are going to go on top. So you want to see the shading on the front. So those are the pieces in the tulip, and that's the shading and the shaping that you do on all the pieces. We'll do a little additional leaf shaping later, but that's the bulk of it. And I did that on all 5 of my tulips. All right, so now I'm going to adhere down the stem and the leaf, and we're going to start building the tulip. So I'm putting Kids Choice glue, which is this great glue that Elizabeth Craft Designs carries. It's like a really kind of, it's a thick viscosity, but it dries completely clear, sets up pretty quickly. So I've spread it on the back of the leaf and the stem with a toothpick, pressed it onto the card front, and I'm just rolling the calyx piece back a little bit so I can tuck the petals under. And now I'm just adding a little bit of glue to the base of that base petal, so like the pointed area, and then I'm pressing it in place behind the calyx. And now I'm going to skip ahead where a lot of the tulips have been done, but I'm going to do the stamen here. So I've cut the little stamen pieces in half using the superfine scissors from Elizabeth Craft Designs. I'm adding glue to the connector piece, gripping it with the little handle and my tweezers, and then rolling it up, and then pinching it with my fingers, and then holding it for not that long, like 30 seconds maybe. I have sped this up just to get it to kind of hold well. And now I'm going to spread the little stamen pieces, little sprays on the front, flip it over, and then dip the stamen ends into the glue, and then dip that into pollen. It's this yellow pollen that Elizabeth Craft Designs also carries, and then dip the base into the glue, and then press that in place onto that base petal. And then the 3 outer petals go on top. So you can tell there's 2 side petals and a center petal, and you can tell after you've die cut them and shaped them which ones are the side petals and which is the center, just from the shape of them. So you want to dip like the lower ends and the back edges of the side petals into the glue, and then press them in place on either side of the tulip under the little calyx, and then the center petal, put glue in the base, and then press that under the calyx on top of those 2 side petals. And as you can see, it can be a little tricky, and I use my fingers and sometimes the tweezers and sometimes the small ball stylus to get them nicely arranged. But that is how you create those tulips. Fairly easy. Now to shape the leaves, I've gripped it on the front with my tweezers and folded it up, and then I flipped it over and used the medium ball stylus and kind of rolled it on the back to give the leaf a little bit of shaping. And you can do as much of that or as little as that as you want. And then I've put glue on the base end of that leaf, and then I'm pressed it down in place. And on these little leaves, really the bending along the vein line is almost enough shaping, but you can do additional shaping if you like. And there you can see, like, I kind of flipped that upside down and added it to get a different shape going on the arrangement. But that leaf is so like sort of organic looking and versatile that I didn't think it made any difference that I kind of flipped it over. So you can see I'm pressing it with the glue and the base to connect everything at the bottom. I tucked any loose ends underneath other petal or leaves just to disguise it, and that was the completed bouquet. Now for my greeting, I cut out Happy Mother's and Day from the Words 3 Happy Holidays die set, also from Elizabeth Craft Designs. I die cut it out of gold mirror cardstock and then white fun foam. And you can also see I've got a butterfly and a ladybug. This is from the Bugs and Butterflies stamp set that I did color and die cut out as little added embellishments. But it's a really simple coloring, so you can check out the details on that on my blog if you're interested. Now the leaves and the stems of the tulips add a lot of support behind the words, so I did not need fun foam behind all of the letters in the words. It was really just the outer words. So like the H and the A get some, and then the Y in happy, the M, the O, the R, and the S in mothers got some. And then on day, it was the A and the Y that had fun foam behind it. But you can see I'm just using my zig pen to adhere the fun foam to the back, and then to adhere the entire word onto the bouquet. And once it was dry, that was the completed project. And you can see how pretty, I think it's very pretty. And it is dimensional, but it's not super dimensional. But kind of a fun spring bouquet. I love tulips in spring. I love multicolored tulips, especially, you know, like having bunches of colors together. So hopefully I've inspired you a little bit to try putting together your own tulip bouquet, either in honor of your mom or for spring. And using glitter with it is really cool too. Thanks so much for watching. Supplies are linked in the video description and over on my blog. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment because I love to hear from you. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do that as well. Here are 2 more projects I've done in the past using the Garden Notes 3D flower dies, so you can check those out if you like. Thanks so much, as always, for watching, and I really appreciate it. Have a great day.